Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න. Work and learn. Meet Light Meet Max සක්‍රිය කර ගැනීමට MySLT app එකට log වෙන්න.
දැන් Signal Herbal 99ක් විශ්වවිද්‍යාල සමග සටන් කරයි.
Tonight, cooperation. As President Ranil Wickremesinghe prorogues Parliament until the 3rd of August, all MPs invited to join all-party government formation discussions. Friction. China responds to US-aid administrator's remarks saying its cooperation with Sri Lanka has contributed to economic development and raises counter-questions against the US.
The US should ask itself, what has it done for developing countries' sustainable development? How much harm has its unilateral economic, financial and foreign policies done?
Rising costs. Sri Lanka's headline inflation increases to 60.8% in July 2022 from 54.6% in June. Plan first. The World Bank says it does not plan to offer new financing to Sri Lanka until an adequate macroeconomic policy framework is in place. All this and much more coming up tonight on First at 9, this Friday, the 29th of July 2022.
Vim Deara milliliter CA Smart Pack එක රුපියල් 85ට දැන් වෙළඳ පොලේ.
From AdaDerana, this is AdaDerana First at 9. Live from Studio 24 in Colombo.
Good evening and welcome to AdaDerana 24's English News. I'm Andrew Bernard. Now in top stories for tonight, President Ranil Wickremesinghe prorogued Parliament with effect from midnight yesterday via an extraordinary gazette, ending the second sitting of the Parliament. Accordingly, the third sitting of the Parliament will commence at 10:30 am on Wednesday, the 3rd of August 2022. At the beginning of the new sitting on the 3rd of August, President Ranil Wickremesinghe will present the policy statement of the government. The second sitting of the 9th Parliament of the Democratic Socialist Republic of Sri Lanka marked its conclusion from midnight yesterday, as President Ranil Wickremesinghe prorogued the Parliament via an extraordinary gazette. The second session of the 9th Parliament began on the 18th of January, during which the Parliament met for 48 days until the 20th of July. The Gazette Extraordinary, which was released by the President's Secretary Saman Ekanayake, says that Parliament was prorogued based on the powers vested in the President from Article 70 of the Constitution, which is on summoning, proroguing and dissolving the Parliament. When the Parliament is prorogued, the questions and motions which were not considered by the Parliament up until then are abolished, and the members of Parliament thus have to take it up in accordance with the standing orders. Also, with the prorogation, committees on parliamentary business, public finance, public accounts, public enterprise, public petitions, standing orders, ethics and privileges, as well as the House Committee, Backbencher Committee, Legislative Standing Committee and Sectoral Oversight Committees need to be reconstituted following the beginning of the new session. However, the Liaison Committee, Committee on High Posts and the Select Committee at the Parliament will remain unchanged. Accordingly, the third sitting of the 9th Parliament will begin on Wednesday, the 3rd of August 2022. On the beginning of the new sitting, Secretary General of Parliament Dhammika Dasanayake is expected to announce the notice of prorogation and the summoning of Parliament. Following those announcements, President Ranil Wickremesinghe will address the Parliament and present the policy statement of the government.
පාරවසාන කරලා මාස 3කට වඩා වැඩියෙන් තියන්න බෑ. හැකි ඉක්මනින් නැවත අලුත් සභාවාරය කැඳවන්න ඕනේ. නව සැසිවාරය ආරම්භ කරනකොට ජනාධිපතිවරයා රජයේ ප්‍රතිපත්ති ප්‍රකාශය කරාම සමහර අවස්ථාවක විවාදයක් ඉල්ලා සිටින්න පුළුවන්.
Now, President Ranil Wickremesinghe invites all members of the Parliament in writing to join discussions on forming an all-party government to resolve the current situation in the country. The President says the government is in the process of planning an economic reform program in a bid to establish economic stability. However, President Wickremesinghe is of the view that an implementation of a program representing all political parties in the Parliament, intellectual groups and civil organizations is essential in order to overcome the existing challenges successfully. The head of state says all parties collectively working together to find solutions to overcome the crisis is now the aspiration of the public. President Wickremesinghe says he plans to build a broad conversation on the reintroduction of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution and the committee system and expects the parties to inform their agreement. Now, the man who stole the president's flag on the 9th of July and used it as a bedsheet was arrested by the police this morning. He was taken into custody after he surrendered to the Dam Street police this morning. On the 9th of July, people in large numbers thronged Colombo to take part in the mass demonstrations against the government over economic mismanagement and corruption. As the demonstrations made strides, the protesters stormed the president's house in Colombo among several other state buildings and continued to occupy the premises for several days. In the meantime, Pathum Kerner, who was arrested by the Colombo Crimes Division, has been remanded until the 4th of August, until an identification parade is carried out on the same day. He was produced before Colombo Additional Magistrate Harshana Kakunavala today. Kerner was taken into custody yesterday in connection with the unruly incidents reported at the entry road to the parliament near Polduva Junction earlier this month. Now, the National Transport Commission announced today that a new bus transport service will be in operation from the 1st of August for school children in the Western Province. The NTC stated that while students will be required to pay the usual bus fares for the trips, parents and caregivers can get more information about the bus service by calling on the hotline 1955 or by visiting the website of the NTC. At the moment, fuel is being dispensed according to the National Fuel Pass system and as per the day assigned to the last digit of the vehicle number plates. According to the Ministry of Power and Energy, as of last evening, a total of 4.6 million vehicles have been registered with the National Fuel Pass system. Further, a total of 5.6 million litres of fuel have been dispensed to 734,932 vehicles from 931 refilling stations. Fuel will be issued only according to the National Fuel Pass system from the 1st of August. With this being the case, many three-wheel owners who have not registered with the National Fuel Pass system continued to get their vehicles registered today as well. In the meantime, the police announced that a total of 1,164 raids have been carried out so far in the country, and from that, 36,296 litres of petrol, 119,457 litres of diesel, and 19,214 litres of kerosene have been seized from individuals who were caught hoarding fuel. In other developments, a new public bus transport service for school children will be introduced in view of the ongoing fuel crisis from the 1st of August. The National Transport Commission stated that school children using this transport service will be charged the usual bus fare.
මෙම බස් රථ 40ක් පමණ අපි අගෝස්තු මාස 1 වෙනිදා සිට බස්නාහිර පළාත තුල ක්‍රියාත්මක කරනවා. විශේෂයෙන්ම කොළඹ තිබෙන ප්‍රධාන පාසල් සහ ගම්පහ, කළුතර, හොරණ, හෝමාගම, මහරගම වැනි ප්‍රදේශවල තිබෙන ප්‍රධාන පාසල් සහ ඒ අවට තිබෙන පාසල් වල දරුවන්ගේ ගමන් පහසුව සලසා ගන්න තමයි මේ ව්‍යාපෘතිය අපි ආරම්භ කරන්නේ. ඒත් සමගම මේ බස් රථය ආරම්භ කරන ස්ථානය සහ ගමනාන්ත පාසල මේ පත්‍රිකාවේ අඩංගු කරලා තියෙනවා. ඕනෑම දෙමව්පියෙකුට පුළුවන් මේ සේවාවන් වල විස්තර ලබා ගන්න. ඒ සඳහා 19.55 අපගේ ශනික ඇමතුම් අංකය පැය 24 පුරා ක්‍රියාත්මකයි. ඊට අමතරව ජාතික ගමනාගමන කොමිෂන් සභාවේ වෙබ් අඩවියෙන් අදාළ තොරතුරු ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්.
Now, the deputy leader of the United National Party, Ruwan Vijayawardena, has been appointed as a presidential advisor on climate change. The appointment was made by President Ranil Wickremesinghe to receive the advice and support for a number of projects that need to be implemented, covering many areas such as reducing global greenhouse gas and carbon emissions, implementation of renewable energy projects, and building a green economy. Issuing a statement, the President's Media Division said that in 2016, Sri Lanka signed the Paris Agreement on climate change. It also said the attention of many people currently around the world is focused on preventing the damage to the earth caused by climate change, and Sri Lanka has a vast responsibility towards this global calling. Now, in the meantime, Akila Viraj Karyavasam has been appointed as a senior advisor to the president on devolved administration. Appointed by President Ranil Wickremesinghe, the UNP member served as the Minister of Education during the government of good governance. Karyavasam also served as the General Secretary of the United National Party prior to the appointment of former MP Palitha Rangibandara. Now we'll be back with more news after this break. Stay with us.
Big 3.
Welcome back. Now, the Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson Zhao Lijian said that China-Sri Lanka cooperation has always followed the principle of being led by Sri Lanka, with scientific planning and thorough verification and no strings attached. The Chinese spokesperson made these remarks in response to the comments made by Samantha Power, the administrator of the United States Agency for International Development, on Wednesday, where she stated that China, as Sri Lanka's largest creditor, has provided opaque loan deals at higher interest rates with little practical use. Li Jian went on to say that while Chinese projects have boosted Sri Lanka's economic development and brought tangible benefits, the US must also try to ease the debt burden and help the country realize sustainable development instead of unscrupulously using every opportunity to shift the blame and seek geopolitical gains.
China-Sri Lanka practical cooperation has always been led by Sri Lanka with scientific planning and thorough verification, with no strings attached. It has boosted Sri Lanka's economic development and brought tangible benefits to the Sri Lankan people. There are multiple components of Sri Lanka's foreign debt, where China-related debts take far less share than that of international capital market and multilateral development banks. Besides, what China provides for Sri Lanka are mostly preferential loans with low interest rates and long terms, which have played a positive part in improving Sri Lanka's infrastructure and livelihood. Shortly after the Sri Lankan government announced to suspend international debt payments, Chinese financial institutions reached out to the Sri Lankan side and expressed their readiness to find a proper way to handle the mature debts related to China and help Sri Lanka to overcome the current difficulties. I want to stress that the global economic and financial markets have taken a heavy toll as the US's recent sudden interest rate hike and balance sheet reduction has siphoned off dollars more rapidly, a reverse from the long-running quantitative easing policy and irresponsible massive stimulus. The US's wayward unilateral sanctions and tariff barriers have undermined the security of global sanctions and industrial chains and worsened the price surge of energy, food, and other bulk commodities. This has further aggravated the economic and financial situation of developing countries, including Sri Lanka. The US and other Western capital has speculated in the Sri Lankan market, manipulated the credit rating of the country, and gravely suppressed the credibility and channel of the country to seek financing. The US should ask itself the following questions. What has it done for developing countries' sustainable development? How much harm has its unilateral economic, financial, and foreign policies done to other countries in the world? We hope the US can genuinely help Sri Lanka overcome the current difficulties, ease the debt burden, and realize sustainable development, instead of unscrupulously using every opportunity possible to shift the blame, smear other countries, and seek geopolitical gains.
Now, UNICEF Sri Lanka launched a program that would provide relief to 1,000 preschool children and 3,000 mothers worst hit by the economic crisis. Through the program, preschool children will be provided with a nutritious meal every day for the next 6 months, while lactating mothers in the Colombo municipal area are provided with 5,000 rupees every month. The UN body stated that if it is able to accumulate more funds during this time, the preschool emergency relief package will be scaled up to reach over 200,000 preschool children and mothers with babies in the districts with the highest levels of poverty and acute malnutrition. UNICEF Sri Lanka launched a special relief package for preschool children and mothers worst affected by the current economic crisis today. The initiative, carried out in collaboration with the Colombo Municipal Council and public health midwives, is expected to provide much needed relief to the urban poor and most disadvantaged families facing severe hardships and struggling to put food on their table. The UNICEF's acting representative for Sri Lanka, Emma Brigham, said that the programs being launched will bring some relief to food insecure families, but much more is urgently needed.
UNICEF is launching a new partnership with Colombo Municipal Council. The partnership includes two exciting and important areas of work. One is around preschool feeding, so giving 1,200 children a school meal every day, including the young children that you see behind me. The second is a cash transfer program for lactating women and will support them for the next 3 months, and that includes around 3,000 lactating women.
With food inflation rising over 80% in June and continuing to increase, the UNICEF has provided regular monthly cash transfers of 5,000 rupees to about 3,000 mothers with newborn babies in the Colombo municipal area as a way of bringing some relief to those who are food insecure over the next 3 months. The mothers will also receive critical information on breastfeeding and nutrition for children. Meanwhile, UNICEF is also providing nutritious meals to over 40 public preschools and daycare centers, serving children from low-income families, including those with special needs, for a period of 6 months. This initiative is focused on preventing acute malnutrition and promoting early learning as a crucial first step in a child's development in a country that has the second highest levels of child wasting under 5 in the South Asian region. UNICEF also recently launched an urgent global appeal calling for much-needed support for Sri Lanka. They stated that if more funds become available, the preschool emergency relief package will be scaled up to reach over 200,000 preschool children and mothers with babies in districts with the highest levels of poverty and acute malnutrition. Welcome back. Now, the World Bank Group stated that it is deeply concerned about the dire economic situation and its impact on the people of Sri Lanka. To help alleviate severe shortages of essential items such as medicines, cooking gas, fertilizer, meals for school children, and cash transfers for the poor and vulnerable households, the World Bank stated that they are repurposing resources under existing loans in their portfolio. They stated that to date, about $160 million of these funds have been disbursed to meet urgent needs of the country. They stated that they are working closely with implementing agencies to establish robust controls and fraudulency oversight to ensure these resources reach the poorest and most vulnerable. The World Bank went on to say that while they continue to monitor the country closely, they are also coordinating closely with other development partners to maximize the impact of their support for the people of Sri Lanka. They went on to state that until an adequate macroeconomic policy framework is in place, the World Bank does not plan to offer new financing to Sri Lanka. This, they stated, requires deep structural reforms that focus on economic stabilization and also on addressing the root structural causes that created this crisis to ensure that Sri Lanka's future recovery and development is resilient and inclusive. The Chinese ambassador to Sri Lanka, Dr. Palitha Kohana, says he hopes to conclude discussions with China soon on a $4 billion aid package, adding that a positive outcome will definitely assist the island nation to re-establish confidence in the financial markets and recover from the country's current financial circumstances. Speaking to Nikkei Asia, the Sri Lankan envoy rejected claims that the island has fallen into a Chinese debt trap and disregarded suggestions that Sri Lanka's financial situation has been caused by the debts owed to China. In an interview with Nikkei Asia, Sri Lankan ambassador to China Dr. Palitha Kohana said Sri Lanka hopes to conclude discussions with China soon on a $4 billion aid package, which could include a $1.5 billion credit line and implementation of a $1.5 billion currency swap. He said the talks are progressing and hope that these discussions could be concluded soon, as a positive outcome would definitely assist Sri Lanka to re-establish confidence in the financial markets and recover its unprecedented and dire financial circumstances. Kohana said a number of Chinese companies have already made commitments to invest in Sri Lanka and they're actively discussing potential investment options with others, including in steel, renewable energy, tyre production, yacht building, and infrastructure development. He says Sri Lanka's Indian Ocean location puts the island within easy air and seas access to promising markets from Africa and the Middle East to India and Southeast Asia. He also said he expects with a return to normalcy, investors in existing big-ticket projects like Colombo Port City and the Hambantota Port area will proceed with their intended investment plans, and the Chinese government is actively encouraging companies to invest in Sri Lanka. The Sri Lankan envoy rejected claims that Sri Lanka has fallen into a Chinese debt trap, arguing that only around 10% of external debt is owed to China. He added that suggestions that Sri Lanka's financial situation has been caused by the debts to China are inaccurate and misplaced. Now, earnings from merchandise exports increased by 20% year-on-year to $1,208 billion in June this year, mainly due to the increase in earnings from export of apparel and textiles, rubber-based products, coconut-based products, food and beverages, and seafood. Between the period of May to June, merchandise exports increased by 12.4% to $6.4 billion compared to the corresponding period of 2021. In June this year, exports of apparel and textiles increased by 36.85% year-on-year to $566.78 million, which was mainly driven by both apparel and textiles. Export earnings from rubber and rubber finished products increased by 7.18% year-on-year to $102.36 million, with good performance in exports of rheumatic and retreated rubber tires and tubes. Due to the strong export performance of kernel products, fiber products and shell products in the month of June, the export earnings from coconut-based products stood at $84.28 million, which is a 19.36% year-on-year increase. Export earnings from seafood meanwhile increased by 130.75% to $36.39 million in June 2022 compared to June 2021. The expansion was contributed mainly by higher exports of frozen fish, fresh fish and shrimps. However, export earnings from tea decreased by 11.25% to $577.38 million during the period of January to June 2022 compared with the corresponding period of 2021. By the end of the first half of 2022, merchandise exports increased by 12.4% to $6.4 billion compared to the corresponding period of 2021. Apparel and textile exports increased by 19.73% to $2.967 billion during the period of January to June 2022 compared to the same period of 2021. Export earnings from coconut and coconut-based products for the period of January to June is $434.34 million, up by over $40 million compared to the corresponding period of 2021. Meanwhile, earnings from export of electrical and electronic components increased by 12.96% to $228.12 million in the period from January to June 2022 compared to the corresponding period of 2021. Export earnings from seafood increased by 33.64% to $142.17 million in the period from January to June 2022 compared to last year. In terms of export markets, Sri Lanka's single largest export destination, the US, recorded $1.687 billion worth of exports between January and the end of June, a significant year-on-year increase of 24.54% in comparison to $1.355 billion recorded last year. Now, the Department of Census and Statistics say that the overall inflation as measured by the Colombo Consumer Price Index on a year-on-year basis in the month of July is 60.8%. The Statistics Office said that inflation calculated for the month of June is 54.6%. The department says that for the month of July, the contribution of inflation by food commodities accounts to 29.46%. The contribution of non-food items, meanwhile, was 31.4%, mainly due to the increases in the value changes in groups including transport, restaurant and hotels, housing, water, electricity, gas and other fuels, which are 13.56%, 4.75% and 4.46% respectively. 1.76% value change in miscellaneous goods, 1.66% in education and 1.44% in health also contributed to the inflation in non-food items. Now that's all the news we have for you tonight. Have a pleasant evening. Good night.